Good morning.
Good morning, Steph. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So good to be able to speak with you today.
Yeah, I'm gonna apologize. You're not getting the best stuff today. I injured my neck earlier this week and I'm still really struggling through it.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm a little off my typical self. So,
Okay. Wow. Wow. Do you mind sharing how it happened?
well, I think I just overworked myself. I mean, it sounds really silly, but I worked from like 9 p.m. till 4 a.m. on the couch with my laptop, like this.
Yeah.
And I mean nonstop. I just was on a
Right.
roll, and I think I just strained it.
That makes sense. I've done that before.
It's silly, but that's the only thing I can think of that I've done. So now
It's
I'm
not.
just
Yeah. It's not
trying.
silly at all. That's how our body works. It's we get in a position, and yeah, it happens. It's happened to me. That's for sure.
Like through the day when I'm here in my office, I've got my stand-up desk so I can sit or stand. All my monitors are up higher where I can have my head high. But I was on the couch and that's that hunkered down. And during the day I take ample breaks to let my dog out or get some water. I just powered through solid 7 hours and I woke up the next morning and I was in pain and I'm still in pain. It's so bad. So don't do that.
I appreciate you being able to join me anyway. And Steph, if I can just say, you look fantastic for somebody that's just suffered an injury. Like you look great. So it's you're showing up in my mind as your best self today because you showed up as
Oh, thank
yourself.
you. Thank you. I'm powering through. It's all we can do, right? It's kind of blessed that we still are working so virtually, so it's easier to show up.
Absolutely, absolutely.
How are
Well,
you?
I'm well. I'm well. It's been like a very interesting space for me in the last several weeks. Like, uh, been doing a little bit of moving around in my personal life. Actually, kind of downsizing quite a bit.
Oh
Sold,
wow.
sold our house and we're in like a long-term Airbnb rental at the moment. And,
Okay.
and then this summer we're moving into a rig 37 by 8 foot fully renovated RV. My brother-in-law is renovating it as we speak right now.
So you
And
guys gonna just travel, live and travel, live and travel?
pretty much like it's stationary. The camp that we're going to, it's in a beach just outside of Coburg here in Ontario. But we're going to be there for 6 months, and then if things kind of lift a little bit more with the, restrictions and that, we want to do a little bit of nomad traveling in the
Yeah.
other 6 months of the year when it's colder, because I like my Jamaican weather, my Guatemalan weather, my Dominican weather. So
Nice. That's so cool. I love that. My husband and I always talk about we live in Washington state and it's not as bad as everyone thinks it is, but it is not, it's no Jamaican weather. It's no Guatemalan weather, like that's for sure. So we always joke about in the winters, like going to Arizona, like getting another house in Arizona and kind of just, I think they call it snowbirding. So
yeah.
yeah, we talk about it, but we're here for a while. His job will keep him here. Mine, I can go anywhere, just like you. But he works in construction, so his jobs are here.
Gotcha. Yeah, and very similar with my wife. She's a little flexible in the way that she's a traveling wedding up stylist. So she
Oh,
does quite a bit of that, mostly locally, but she does get the odd job here and there, kind of more so outside of our typical geographical region. So
that's
um,
probably exciting when she gets those gigs. Any excuse to get to travel.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, Steph, I got to say thank you so much for joining the show today, the Shop Talk 20 podcast. And I want to jump right in with you. I mean, my hope and my desire is to bring as much value as possible to the people that are listening. And if I can just say, you're very, very thoughtful in, the content that you put out, the image, the brand that you put out. And, it's just been such an element that's resonated with me, the transparency, the honesty, even you coming on the call today and just being real about, your current state and what's going on. So I've always appreciated, what you've put out in that perspective from afar, and I'm a fan. So it's great to be able to speak with you and kind of get to know a little bit more about you and what you got going on, which is actually where I will start. So if you could just, quickly tell the people that are going to be listening to this a little bit, where are you from? What do you do? What are you up to?
Yeah, well, I was born in California, but I don't claim it because my mom and dad rushed us up here to Washington before I can remember. So I claim a true Washingtonian through and through. Live just south of Seattle up here in the beautiful the beautiful Pacific Northwest, PNW. That's what everyone's always calling it up here. I love it. And then, so I live south of Seattle though. I can stare across my way and I'm staring at a pig pen. I live in the country.
Nice.
I love it. Yes.
Me too.
Neighbors have pigs. Neighbors behind us actually share the wall with our master bedroom, have roosters. That's been fun. So yeah, definitely live out here in what I love about the country, and have been here pretty much all my life. I jumped away and moved to Nevada for a small little stint, and I couldn't stay away. I love the Northwest. I love the green. I love the life. I am the weird one who loves the water and the rain. Like I'm down with that because it gives us this beautiful scenery that we get. So
love it.
So I've been here pretty much forever. And we'll like we talked about earlier, we'll pretty much be here for a while.
Very cool. Very cool. And then just for the people that are listening, tell just a snapshot as like, what do you do? What's a day in the life of Steph look like professionally? What are you up to?
Well, I love that question because I feel like it's changing so much. So fun fact, I started Vim in 2018 and worked my darndest to work through Vim and another job for the first pretty much 2 years of Vim. And just 2 months ago, January 4th, 2021, I went full-time into my business. And I haven't really made that huge in public. Thank you. I didn't want to make some sort of big thing about it. Because I never would lie about anything to anyone, but I never really broadcast that I was doing the two hats. I was honest with my clients. But yeah, so thank you. I appreciate the applaud.
Absolutely.
It's so the life professionally for Vim has been a really fun transition these last 2 months. January and February, I was just trying to give myself a ton of grace to just figure out what is it like to just work for yourself. Some of the things, and this is probably not what you think I'm going to talk about, but some of the things I really focused on is me. I wanted to start my business to be selfish, as oddly as that sounds. I wanted to work so hard, like I worked for the employers that I've had, amazing employers, by the way, but I worked so hard for them. I wanted to do that for myself. And I wanted to also start focusing on my health. And I know it sounds contrary to what I spoke about with my neck, but I started running again. So on my lunch breaks, I've been running. I start my morning by getting all my water. I measure out my water. I get my tea, and then I usually read about 10, 15 minutes of my book, and then I journal, and then I meditate, and then I get up here in my office and start my day. And that's a lot of things that I was not doing for myself that I'm not perfect at. Don't get me wrong. There's been some missed mornings like this morning. I did not get to do all my journaling, my book, or my meditating, but I do have my water and my tea. But it's like, that's the forefront for me right now, is just taking care of me, because it is just me right now. But yeah, I'm up here in my office most of the time, and I am doing really fun things like getting to talk to people like you. Been jumping on some networking groups just to kind of get, more connections out there. And then I do have about 10 to 12 team members for Vim that are all contract based. And so kind of becoming that project manager hat and just kind of connecting with them, building them up, all of us making each other stronger for the greater of all of us. So yeah, that's, I guess, the day in the life. I don't know if if that's what you were expecting to hear, but that's what's going on over here.
Well, you're bang on, Steph, and it's great to kind of hear that from your vantage point, because I think it gives people a different layer as far as, because you're very much so in the marketing space, in the branding space, and it's neat to kind of hear from you, what that day in a life looks like, because it really is exciting. I mean, even from my perspective, like it truly is a blessing and a privilege to be able to do what we do. And the fact that there's really no limitations as to, who you can reach, who you can work with. It's quite global. We like clients we work with are pretty much global as far as the contracts that we get. So it's a huge blessing in itself. And just to kind of hear from you, somebody in that space, it's just I love hearing it, because it's so relative to, pivoting in the world today, and different opportunities that are out there.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, it is. I mean, I've always known from a long, long time when I started my career, as soon as I landed in this space and figured out that some of these things that came innate to me were skills that were marketable and that were hireable, I realized early on that I would continue to push through and not allow myself to get off this path, because without knowing what was going to happen in the world, I always knew I wanted to work from home. I wanted to be able to be here. I wanted to be able to be anywhere. I wanted to take my laptop. My husband and I have the RV outside right now for this weekend. We're going to try to leave early tomorrow so I can work on the road. I mean, I've never been this crazy travel bug, but I just never wanted to have to be any particular where. And my husband's 10 years older than me. So when we're starting to look at like retirement, I'm going to be 10 years behind him. So if I can pick up my laptop and go wherever he wants to go, that's going to be a blessing for our family. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's really, really cool, thinking about, future, what does the gig that I'm in, what the passion that I have, what does that allow me to do, not only in the now, but long term.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. Steph, if I could just ask you this, just as, just you seem like you have a wealth of wisdom, knowledge. I want to pick your brain a little bit. What is the kind of one of the highlighted lessons that you would say you kind of took from 2020?
Oh man. Um, no one's asked me that question. I think, gosh, I think there's a lot of things. I definitely think, and I was just talking, I was just talking to my girlfriend yesterday about this. We haven't gone anywhere for like a year. I mean, that's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
within reason, right? The grocery store, the small circle that we've kept ourselves to. I think, and then I've done a little traveling for work. She has two young kids, so she has not. But I really think taking for granted the high touch experiences that we used to think were old school, has really been what I've started pulling out, at least for the marketing sense. And I'm kind of gearing off a little bit here than where I meant to start. But people have asked me, like, what should people be thinking about when it comes to marketing right now? And what I've taken from 2020 to apply to the marketing sense is that the element of high touch is now going to be more valuable than ever, because it was taken away. Anytime you take something away, it has high value. It's supply and demand. So now, right now, physical touch, the ability to be physical in some way, tangible, touchable, without seeming weird, that is in supply and demand. There's a lack of it. And so that, I think, is one of the things I pulled away really early on. One of the earliest blogs I wrote about COVID back in like March or April was about, seeing what is happening and responding. So, I mean, any of the people that I connect with, any prospects or any of my clients, they get a thank you package from me. They get a branded pen, a notepad, a handwritten note from me, and I send that out to them. And that is kind of old school approach, right? We used to like send written cards, and that's kind of gone to the wayside with email and chit chat and all of Zoom calls, right? But I think,
Meaningful.
yeah, but it really does. It goes in alignment too with my brand. So my brand identity books are something that not every, marketing agency firm that does branding really does. Actually, I don't know if any of them do, but I take something like a logo and your brand that is seemingly intangible, and I put it in a hardback book, so that it becomes tangible. And so just taking that same concept to, I mean, literally what we're doing now, and just kind of making it more high touch. So I think as far as business world, that's the biggest thing that I've taken away from 2020. And then personally, just really valuing who you select. Like, I think at this point, 2020, you had to choose. Who am I going to break the rules for? Because essentially, even going over my neighbors is breaking the rules, right?
Right.
Even though technically they're my cousins, so it's not, because they're family. But our little small circle, we've chose to break the rules for. Someone, in my outer circle might say, hey, you want to come over? And I'll usually say no, because the risk of putting my inner circle that I'm choosing to be with might not be worth going outside. So I think choosing your people too, and being mindful of that, has been another big thing.
Wow, it's so interesting that you mentioned that, Steph, and thanks for sharing that. Like, it's certainly relevant to really some of the challenges that we're now facing in today. Like, if I think about OSM, like one of the biggest focuses that I have right now from an HR perspective is culture. How do we create high touch experiences there as we all kind of work remotely? And by the way, like some of my team leaders, like, they love it now. They're like, yeah, I don't know if I want to go back to working in an office, but at the same point, they still want some of those experiences that they would have had if in a physical office space. So then recreating that. So that's been a huge focus. It's something that's constantly on my mind. And I love how you bring it up, talking from the vantage point of working with the client, because that's certainly something that's important to them as well. Steph, if you can just touch on for yourself, like, I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, like, you're very, very thoughtful. And it's something that I've always admired from the moment that I came across you on Instagram there. And one thing that really kind of sticks out is, you talk about taking care of yourself. And I actually want to read a quote from you, and I want to kind of get your feedback on it.
Okay.
So one of your quotes was, "You can't pour from an empty cup. Take care of yourself first." What you talked a little bit about, that experience for you, wanting to leave your employee position, go out on your own. But in the last like 6 to 8 months, what is something that you can point to as an example of not being able to lead with when your cup is empty, and having to take care of yourself? Can you speak to that a bit?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest, the precipice of my leaving, it wasn't because I didn't like my job. It was just, I was stretched so thin, and the analogy of you can't pour from an empty cup is the same one as when you're on an airplane and they say, put your mask on first before helping others. It's the same reason why I'm doing these things as a morning routine to take care of myself, because if you can't perform, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And if I am the leader and I am weak because I'm not taking care of myself, then I not only can't lead my team, I can't inspire my team. I can't be a mentor for them. I can't absorb the lessons that they're going to share for me. Because I truly believe we're all in this together. We're all in this to learn. And so I think if I look at the last 6 to 8 months, my previous job, I was managing and hiring. I was managing a team of sales men and women. I was hiring for the whole company, while working on their business development strategies and marketing strategies. So that's where my background is in strategic marketing as well as business development, which encompasses sales. So while it was a small company and the numbers were small in the staff, what we were doing was huge. And so plus at the same time, I was running Vim, and I was getting to the point where it was definitely clear. It had been clear for a while that I could leave and focus on Vim fully, but I was doing both. And so I was just not sleeping well, working too many hours. I was getting to the point where I was skipping out on functions with friends and family. And it was, if you think about what's the last 6 to 8 months, that was Thanksgiving, Christmas, right? It was a lot of these important times where, even though we're not supposed to necessarily gather, we have our inner circle that we've stuck with. And I was literally not wanting to go. So I think it was just really seeing that my cup was so empty that I didn't even want to do what life is about. I wanted to work, and I genuinely wanted to work. And I think that's what, as entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you can contest, it gets that way, because I do love what I do. But I also am a firm believer that we need to work to live, not live to work. And part of why part of my strategy of continuing to put out, what I put out, I know sometimes people are like, well, how does this have anything to do with marketing? Because if you look, over half of my stuff has very little about promoting what I do. Half of that is to inspire others, but the bigger half is to remind me of why I do what I do. I need the reminder.
Can we talk about that for a second? That you hit on something that is very, very I have a very, very deep passion about, and it is the psychological therapeutic benefit of putting out positive content on behalf of yourself, personal brand, on behalf of your business brand, and the actual psychological and therapeutic benefit to that. How, if you can speak to, how has that benefited you? Because it's benefited me huge, and I get just all excited.
I can see it
when I put it out, because it's accountability for me. It's forcing me to be in a space where I'm always learning, I'm always growing, I'm always challenging myself, because I'm only measuring myself against myself. I'm not looking at anyone else for that kind of measuring stick. So I have to constantly be trying new things and putting myself out there in different ways. And it's actually gotten me more comfortable in a space with my team, in a space with the clients I work with, and getting me to a place of transparency and candor that I would argue I wouldn't have reached had I not put myself out there repeatedly in a vulnerable way. Can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, I love watching you too. Like, it's been such a fun connection. This is fun that this is the first time we're one-to-one here, but I love your energy and the enthusiasm and the happiness. Like, I see happiness when I see your posts. Like, that is such a great, word to come from your brand. I hope that that's the word you want people to feel, because
I appreciate that.
That's what you evoke. Vulnerability. So two things I want to touch on. One, you talk about vulnerability, and two, you talk about like putting positive things out there. So first of all, the vulnerability is huge. The moment you put yourself out there when you're at your most vulnerable, you only have from there to go. And I know that sounds really silly, but look, I'm struggling today. I'm not feeling great. You're making me feel so much better. I'm getting, every second through this, I feel better. But it's only up from there. So, putting yourself out there, like even on my stories this week, I've put myself laying on the ground with a neck roller behind my neck, and I'm just like sad faced. I'm like, guys, I hurt myself. And that just makes me real. It makes what I'm putting out there raw and unpolished and maybe not unprofessional, because I think entrepreneurs can relate.
Talk about it.
Yeah, I think I tell my clients all the time when they're like, oh, I can't hire a professional photographer. I don't have a videographer, or I don't have videography skills. Clients and our consumers, they want real and raw. I think there's a balance between real, raw, and professional and polished. I think there's a balance on where you put the content. Facebook, Instagram, a lot of these platforms have given us the tools to put our real and raw someplace, and know that it doesn't have to stand the test of time. So think stories, right? It goes away in 24 hours. It doesn't have to be there forever. And so I think in regards to vulnerability, definitely it's just once you break through that, you realize that you're here, and it wasn't that bad, and it wasn't that scary, and it was well received. And then the positivity for me, so my social media strategy, the way that I work through my client strategies is with our content mix. We literally pie chart out, as simple as that, which different topics we're talking about. Oftentimes, because people don't buy what you do, they buy who you are.
I saw that on it, and I was like, yes.
Yeah. I mean, people can buy branding from anywhere. People can buy cups from anywhere. People can buy hats from anywhere. But consumers are loyal by nature. They want to be loyal, but they want to be loyal to people who believe what they believe. And it doesn't have to just be, religious or political beliefs or anything. It can just be like, these are my people. They make me feel good. People buy with feelings as much as, I think the saying got a bad rap, and I've always believed this. Even my uncle, who I look up to in a business sense, he has told me there's no place for feelings in business. And I think that that saying got skewed a long time ago. There's no place for feelings in business when it comes to statistics and analytics.
Talk about the context.
Yeah, you never want to say, I feel like it was a good month, right? I feel like our numbers are good.
Yeah.
No. Numbers, analytics, dollars, you don't go with feelings. But business, you have to have feelings in business. You
relationships.
have relationships, employees, like all of that. And I think, if I could go back into time to prove myself right or wrong, I feel like I'll be right, because I think someone said it once and then it got misconstrued. But yeah, because people, our consumers want to relate to, think about why people line up to buy the iPhone decades ago. You know what I mean? It had nothing to do with the iPhone being the best thing. It had to do with it being the latest and greatest and innovative and new and exciting. So the positivity posts and the inspiring posts are so much a piece of me that I want to just put out there. I always give credit to the authors when I know who said it, because they're inspiring me. They're helping me grow. Actually, you want to do something fun? So I share these little cards every day. I think we're audio only, but you and I can see each other. But I share these cards.
No, this is film.
Okay, awesome. So this is yesterday's. I have not flipped to today's. So let's flip to today's. This is the motto of the day. My girlfriend gave me this. Yesterday was every day is a fresh start. So let's do this together. This is always a highlight of my day, is to get to see what this is going to be. Oh, I love it. Find what makes your heart smile.
I
love that one.
You know what,
So,
the answer to that question, and I believe I've found it, is like the relationship side. Like I've always told people from the moment, like, and I'm doing businesses in myself, like as a little bit of background for context for you, like I bought OSM from the previous owner in like November 2018. So I'm
okay.
like in like year 3,
Yeah,
right?
we're in
So
the same kind of path.
yeah, 100%. And like for me, very early on, what I realized and what I knew I needed to lean into was relationships are 100% a strength for me. So I need to lean into that. So when I got my business coach and we were chatting, it was like, man, like where do you excel? Like what is, you know what I mean? And I was like, man, relationships. And he's like, okay, you need to build the team around you that are going to do the stuff that you're not as good at, maybe
Yeah.
don't love to do, and surrender that stuff and then go full tilt into the relationship side. Shop Talk Quinny was birthed in the midst of the pandemic as a way to continue that model and that mantra of mine, which is, keeping those relationships alive and expanding and building new ones. So it super resonates with me, everything that you're saying around that, because that has been a huge just even personal emotional attachment for me in this business. The feeling side of it,
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, I mean, these become our babies. Like our business is, I mean, it's so much work. I mean, I think what is on the trend right now, there's instead of baby showers, or in addition to baby showers, I've seen a huge trend of business showers, because it is such an investment of your heart, your soul, your time, your energy. And honestly, like there's so much less risk to just go get a job, to just be an employee. Sure, of course you can get fired, but you just pick up and go get another job.
Can I
Uh,
ask you this? Can I ask you this real quick? What's the
yeah,
hardest part of business for you? Because you've touched on it, and like I want to kind of dialogue a little bit about this, because I, I I think it's everybody has a lot of these challenges, but we don't talk enough about it with each other so that we can support each other in
yeah,
it. Like if I can kind of like just lead, like for an example for me, like real example, I have a very um I've had a very unhealthy relationship with the appearance of judgment in
uh,
my business. Somebody sends you an email or a text or a phone call and uses the words, I'm disappointed
uh,
in, your company, or you're in, what I mean? Like we get those every now and again.
yeah,
And I really had to kind of go through, and I'm still going through, how do I compartmentalize? Okay, and I say this to myself and I say this to my team now. It's like 99.9% of challenges, problems that happen in business are fixable.
oh yeah, yeah,
And when you hear words like I'm disappointed, don't take that as a judgment against you, as if that's final. Take it
yeah,
as here's a challenge that can potentially be overcome, and look at
yeah.
it that way, as opposed to that person now has a personal vendetta
Yeah.
against you.
Yeah, no, I resonate with that so much. So I am a self-proclaimed validation seeker. And as a business owner, that is not a good trait. I struggle a lot with imposter syndrome and seeking validation. And as the business owner, I'm the one usually giving it to my team, or even giving it to my clients. I am the first to applaud my clients when they are skillful in the things I'm asking them to do, because I want them to recognize, like, not all my clients can upload a document to Google Drive, as silly as that sounds. And I don't know, I've always been a believer, give unto others as you would like done to you. I don't
Ooh,
always receive that.
talk about the proverb.
Right. And so yeah, recently, so we were editing some copy live with a client, live in their book on the design file. Somehow the save button didn't save or something, right? I don't know how it happened, but export the PDF, give it to the client for their final review. And I get back the response like, all of the copy we worked on is still the old copy. None of the new copy is in here. And so I'm like, oh, okay, I grabbed the wrong file. Let me go look for it. I go and I scour and I scour and I scour and I can't find it. So I have to let the client know, I'm so sorry. Let's jump on a call. Let's rework through this again because I don't have what we worked on. I don't know how, but I don't. And he came back and he said, well, I can't tell you I'm happy. And those words really, like you said, the disappointing, like those words just dagger to the heart.
It's here.
Yeah, just dagger to the heart. And I think what I responded to in my head and in my heart, not to my client, because my client doesn't need to hear that. But what I told myself was, I'm not happy either. And I'm not. But I'm not going to beat myself up about it because that isn't going to help me be stronger. I'm not happy. My client's not happy. All I can do is apologize for it, move on, and grow on. And that's been, and I'm pretty sure you'll see that popping up in one of my posts here shortly. So I try to be pretty proactive. So my content is usually pre-done, but I tend to see a lot of what synchronicity in my life. And I believe in intuition. And I think that's a beautiful way that it comes out for me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
And I know that I've said that before, that, just learn from it and then just kind of grow on. And that's been my thing here is I'm not perfect. I'm still learning how to do this. I am phenomenal at marketing, phenomenal at business development. I do a lot of things amazingly, but I've never owned a business before. I'm no accountant. I'm not a project manager. I'm learning things as I go. So I say a lot of times you got to give grace to get grace. And I think that's been the mentality I have when I'm hearing these things, like I'm disappointed. Well, I'm disappointed too. I'm with you and I'm sorry, but let's go from here.
That's wonderful. You've touched on something that's super, super important, when we do hit those challenges and first and foremost of, just being empathetic to where that person's coming from. I always, now I'm in a space where I tend to go inward and think, are my intentions not right for the person that I'm working with? And 10 times out of 10, I'm like, no, I'm here to help this person. That is my intention. So my intentions are good. So let's get that out the way. I'm not in bad intent with who I'm working with. So then, we push that imposter syndrome to the side. And then we say, okay, is this problem fixable? And then to your point, moving forward, how do we do this? And in a way that it's, and accountability. That's probably one of my top 3 values is accountability. Am I doing what I'm saying? Is what I'm saying matching what I'm doing and being accountable to what I say? So there's just so many benefits, in entrepreneurship. It's not for the faint of heart, as you mentioned, and it's I think I can relate to you a lot in the sense that I too look for validation. I talk about, measuring against myself, but I also do appreciate when I do have, I get a compliment or somebody has something nice to say about me. So I'm learning about, not dwelling on that. Dwelling is something that I'm discovering is not good on any side of the spectrum. If I'm dwelling on something good for too long, I'm probably too caught up. If I'm dwelling on something that's not good for too long, I'm probably caught up. So, really, focusing on that. But Steph, if I want to, it's a huge step, and I want to bring some value to people here because I don't think people can always appreciate, unless they've done it, the amount of fear that you have to overcome in order to go from, employee to
Yeah.
business owner. And talk about the financial risk, and all of the family dynamic and everything that you want, you have to work through in that. I'm going to read a quote, and I want you to respond to it in that context. And it's a quote from you, and it says, only when we are no longer afraid do we begin to live. Tell me how that's worked out in your life.
That I love that quote. It gave me goosebumps. Um, I often say that there is no such thing as failure. It's only an opportunity to grow. And that was a mantra over and over and over that I was having, and that I would even share with my team, um, because it seems like a failure sometimes when you fail, but that's a perception. And so if you can just reshape in your mind this concept of failure and instead see all of the opportunities to grow from it and learn from it, it makes fear not as scary. Like because when you think of fear, really, what does it come down to? It's usually fear of failure, of not
Mm,
being enough. The fear doesn't come from like, it's not like we're not jumping to a fear from like, I'm going to die or I'm going to break my leg if I jump off this cliff. It's fear of not measuring up, of not succeeding. And so to me, I literally just a couple days ago, I think because my neck has had me in the feels. I'm being so honest. When your physical is altered, then it really affects your mental. And I was sitting in a room over here and I was thinking, you know, if Vim doesn't last much longer and I go get a job, then I had a job with Vim for 3 years. And that's not bad. Like that, no one would ever say, oh yeah, I worked for that company for 3 years and then I moved on to another, and then have any negative connotation with it. But for some reason, if you start a business and then decide to go back to the corporate world, it looks like you failed in business versus you just moved on and you grew, to just like with every other
mm,
job. It's like, we look at our career and our resume and we said, oh, I leveled up from assistant to supervisor to manager to director, versus if you fail at a business or if you decide to go back to the corporate world. Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't you think there's a perception here that you failed? How is that fair?
100, no, 100%. Steph, you're hitting a chord, because you are absolutely right. It is the perception. Oh, that person started a business, and yeah, it didn't last for 3 years. I think now they're back working at No Frills or Walmart or something. And
Right.
it's really almost disrespectful. Like I remember, 10 months ago or so, having a very hard phone call with a client who was saying, like, Josh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I can't work. I can't run my business. We
Yeah.
we legally
Yeah.
can't do anything. And I was like, is there any, I had a few opportunities that just was shown to me through somebody else, and they were just jobs that were needed within the essential services, within our region at the time. And I was like, have you looked into this? Could you get a job here? I'm like, all I'm trying to do, because I know you want to get back to running your business, I'm trying to help lead you in a direction where you can at least float and keep your livelihood and your family and all of that going until you get to a place. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. And oh, by the way, if you do it and then decide, what, I kind of like doing this as opposed to running a business, and that's something that you like,
Yeah.
then do that.
Yeah.
What?
This we're constantly like being, I think there's this I don't know, I guess there's this feeling of like judgment all the time. One of my clients was exactly in the situation you painted, and she's a speaker.
Mm.
And that is her, think about that. In the pandemic, our speakers, and she was doing safety, they're doing safety speaking. And they're fortunately back at that now. Things are opening up enough, but her entire business shut down. And she went and got 9 to 5. And we just kept at it. We just kept, pushing. And now her books are filling up again, which is great.
Wow.
But yeah, this fear of judgment and this concept of, if you try something as big and bold as a business, if it doesn't last, you failed versus you moved on. And I've never talked about this concept as much as I have with you today. And it's almost got me frustrated because I'm like, it's just not fair.
Well, and it's funny because I can already tell, because I think you and I work the same way in this, and you alluded to it earlier. You take inspiration from conversations, real conversations that you're having, and then that outflows, talking about therapy again, it outflows in the content distribution. And one thing that I will forever talk about, and probably will talk about more as a result from this conversation, is peace over everything. If you have peace in your life, you are the wealthiest person in the world, because the opposite of peace often will include a lot of the things that people think are the signs of success: the fancy car, the big house. But are those things bringing you peace? If not, feel free to get rid of them. You can offload those things. I'm moving into an RV this summer because that's going to bring me peace. I have very odd and peculiar financial goals, and moving into an RV is going to help me accomplish those. Am I going to care what people think in order to do that? No.
Right. And it's hard not to care about what people think.
It is.
I think we can say no because we can work past it. But in reality, we do care, but we recognize we care more about our piece, right? So there's those layers there. It's like, I do care, but I care more about my piece. And I recognize that. I mean, I say all the time, I'm so fortunate and blessed that we have, what we have. But I would give everything up as long as I could have my husband and my dog. I don't need any of these material things. I'll be maybe my computer, because it does let me do my job. But otherwise, I would give it all up, because those things aren't as important to me. The fancy things that I'm blessed to have, don't. I mean, sure, it's nice, but they don't drive me. I was so blessed to go to Kauai. If you've never been to Kauai, that island and the people on that island are so, like you said, peace over everything. The conversations I had in Kauai with the locals and even the travelers, everything just came back to living within very minimal means and just finding peace. That trip opened my eyes to how little you need to be happy. I think that, without even thinking about it, I think that's flowed into me a lot in the last couple of years.
That's wonderful, Steph. That's brilliant. If you've never heard of Dave Ramsey, check him out. He's amazing with financial literacy, and talks quite often about living on less than you make. Living like no one else now so that you can live like no one else later. Steph, I wish we had more time. This has been like such a riveting conversation, and very, very transparent and honest. I didn't know how honest we were going to get today, but I'm pleasantly surprised, and it's just been an absolute pleasure and an honor to speak with you today. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me on the show. I'm really look forward to us continuing to connect offline and online.
Absolutely. We'll do this again, and we're going to connect offline. There's a good synergy happening here.
I like it. Well, thank you again.
Thank you, Steph. We'll talk to you. Thank you so much. Take care.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.